Hey, welcome back to the Crash Base. My name is Andre. That's Nanako the cat, and thanks so much for tuning in. So just a couple weeks ago on this channel, we did our first ever live stream in our Paper Play studio, and we went through the Rise of the Red Skull campaign box, the first ever campaign box for Marvel Champions. And while we played through most of the box, we got through the first 4 scenarios, we never actually got to the 5th scenario. We kind of ran out of the time on that Friday evening, and so we never got to face off against the finale, Red Skull. I think the Red Skull scenario is actually one of my favorite scenarios in this box. While Red Skull on his own is maybe not that interesting, there's this whole idea that there's this set-aside side scheme deck, and every turn you add a side scheme, so there's constantly things that you have to do, that you have to juggle. It's not just like fight this guy, it's fight this thing while also making sure that you don't get underwater when all the schemes come out over and over again. So today, we're going to hopefully finish the fight. Notably as well today, we played the entire campaign on standard difficulty, on standard 3 specifically. Now we're just cranking it up to expert. Because this is not a live stream, hopefully there's one less thing to worry about. So I normally play on expert, we're just gonna put the difficulty up. For what it's worth, like, Hawkeye isn't the most powerful hero, that's who we're playing today, but I still think we're gonna have a fine time here today. So we start here with the setup again. This is the Rise of Red Skull. Now the back of this doesn't mention expert difficulty, which is kind of weird, but we're gonna have to get through Red Skull 2 and Red Skull 3. So once we defeat the first Red Skull that has 16 health, we have to find out what Red Skull 3 looks like. We use the standard encounter set, we're using standard 3, and we're using the 3 expert standard cards and just mixing them together and saying that they make sense. Our 2 modular encounter sets are Hydra Assault and Hydra Patrol. Now that means there's mostly minions shuffled into the deck, a bunch of smaller Hydra minions. And setup says to put the red house into play, shuffle every other side scheme into the side scheme deck, and set it next to the encounter deck. Put the sleeper aside out of play. So this is the side scheme deck. And so this has 5 side schemes that are unique to the Red Skull scenario. And then there is 1 side scheme Hydra Patrol from the Hydra Patrol set. So we're just going to shuffle this up for the camera and put it down there on the side. Otherwise, the encounter deck, I have set it up with everything we needed in it. We're going to give it a bit of a shuffle. There are 2 experimental weapons that ended up from the first scenario, from the crossbone scenario. So I forget which ones they are. I think it's the laser rifle and the energy gauntlets, the retaliate one, if I'm not mistaken. But this is our encounter deck. We'll give that a quick shuffle. Now, once we flip over the Rise of Red Skull to the second side, it's not too much of a setup from here. It comes in with no threat, but specifically, it should be adding, I believe, the amount of threat equal to the amount of delay counters from the Absorbing Man scenario, which was the second scenario campaign. At this point in time, I can't remember if it was 4 or 5 delay counters, so I'm just going to go ahead and put 5 delay counters on here and say that's probably correct, just to make it slightly harder if at all. Now it says Red Skull plans to conquer the world with the power of the Reality Stone. He uses his strategic genius to keep you busy while he works towards his goal. And this is the text that makes sure that side schemes keep popping up turn after turn. It says, as a forced response after revealing step 1 of the villain phase, which is when you put 1 threat per player on the main scheme, we'll also have to reveal the top card of the side scheme deck. So there's always going to be a side scheme every single turn. There's no way to stop that. So we all have to constantly be thwarting, which is not really one of Hawkeye's big strengths. Luckily, this is a Justice deck, and it is also a S.H.I.E.L.D. Justice deck, so we're not terrible at thwarting. But if you're good at thwarting, this scenario throws a lot of stuff at you that you constantly have to thwart, which is good fun. Of course, Red Skull 2 now will make a bit more sense. Red Skull has 16 health per player, so 16 health. Schemes for 3, which is pretty big. Attacks for 1, but it gets +1 attack for every side scheme in play. So currently that's 2, but at the beginning of every round, we will be revealing a side scheme. So Red Skull functionally has 2 attack, but it can get worse and worse and worse if you fall behind the side schemes. And when revealed, we'll deal each player an encounter card. Of course, don't interact with that encounter card. You only flip that encounter card face up during the encounter cards phase, during the villain activation or the villain phase. So that'll be there waiting for us. And that's most of the setup, if I'm not mistaken. Let's look at the Red House really quickly, which comes into play, mind you. That was part of the setup. And Red House has 3 threat per player. Red Skull cannot take damage while this is in play, so we have no use attacking Red Skull. And it says interrupt, when a character thwarts the side scheme, they may use their attack instead of their thwart stat. This actually became a keyword many years later in the design of Marvel Champions called Assault, which again, you can use your attack instead of your thwart. Hawkeye will come into play with 2, probably 3 attacks, so we can one-shot the Red House, so that's not terrible. But this is going to be the scheme that starts in play every time you play this. Otherwise, the side schemes are shuffled up and they'll be coming 1 per turn. I think that's mostly it. We'll shuffle up. Again, we're playing Hawkeye, and Hawkeye generally shoots arrows. Now, Clint Barton is our alter ego and doesn't have a very powerful alter ego ability. Just basically on the first turn, we'll spend a resource to go search our deck and discard pile for our bow. You need your bow to shoot arrows, and that's kind of all Clint does, so we're definitely going to do that on turn 1. Now, Clint starts with 6 hand size, which is pretty regular. 9 health is the lowest you can largely get in Marvel Champions. But notably, we got an upgrade to deal with this. This is the improved recovery upgrade, which I have to admit, I have never taken before. This is not a card that's part of deck building. This is a campaign card that you get in this campaign if you want to. It gives us +4 hit points, so now we're 13. That's pretty good. We actually get +1 to our recovery stat, so we generally use that maybe once or twice a game. We generally recover at least once. And response, after we recover, we can draw a card. Again, I don't normally go for the thwarting, improved thwart upgrade, and the improved attack upgrade. This seemed kind of funny as a thing to do because 9 health isn't great, but at least now we have a bit more health. The other text on this might not be relevant for this entire scenario. And with that, we're going to shuffle up our deck and start here. There's a lot of important cards we want to open with playing Hawkeye. We definitely have some thwarting we want to do. Again, making sure our thwarting is as consistent as possible is really important. One of the best cards we can get as soon as possible, besides our bow and our quiver, is Skilled Investigator. This means that after basically every turn, if we're getting rid of a side scheme, we are drawing a card. And just free card draw, this thing costs 0, is kind of fantastic. You can't ask for better than that. We could set up, also we are a shield deck, so we have a lot of expensive shield supports we want to get down sooner than later. So depending on how we set up, the one thing we definitely want to do is we want to make sure that we're always clearing one side scheme a turn, because otherwise we end up being in a bad spot when we're kind of far behind. So with that, we'll draw 6 cards and see what we keep. So we start with a Vibranium Arrow. This is an arrow that does 6 damage. We doesn't really do anything on turn 1 unless we get rid of this, because Red Skull cannot take damage. We have the Helicarrier. This is our expensive, it's a shield support. Gives us functionally 1 resource a turn, which is not bad. This is in the core set, you're probably pretty familiar. Sonic Arrow, this is an arrow that confuses, does a bit of damage and confuse is nice. We can flip down, and 3 scheme, mind you, is a lot for Red Skull. We have Quake. Now, Quake is pretty cheap to get down if we need a chump blocker, but not a priority. We have Explosive Arrow, which is a damage arrow that hits everyone for 3 damage on the table largely, and a Government Liaison. This is another shield card that makes our other shield cards cheaper. Honestly, do not like most of this hand at all. An early Government Liaison is not bad, especially if we draw a resource card so we can play for free, but we don't have anything that really helps us with thwarting. We are going to get our bow, so we're always just going to discard 1 card for a bow using Clint's text, but basically I don't like any of this stuff. We could also hold the Helicarrier and then hope that, like, we have to plan our turn out. So if we play 3 cards for the Helicarrier, we can play 1 card to get the bow and then play the bow, and we have 1 left over, which is kind of ugly. So I think we might just take the Government Liaison and hope to play the Helicarrier later by playing, we have the Build Support card, which is a side scheme, which maybe it's not great to play a side scheme in a deck that punishes you for having too many schemes in play, but this might be the way that we get down our Helicarrier with one of our arrows. These arrows are also not terrible. Sonic Arrow is fine. Confuse is nice here. The Explosive Arrow is whatever. The Vibranium Arrow is whatever. But this is not the greatest opening hand. I think I'm going to keep the Government Liaison because it's a nice cheap shield card and we care about that. And we'll just draw 5 more cards. Ooh, that's really good. So this is Moon Knight. Moon Knight is a campaign card, not normal deck building card. But we got this from the Taskmaster scenario. It's just a 0-cost ally, which on its own is really quite nice. And its numbers are nice. But if we do have a wild icon, which our deck only has like, I think 3 cards with wild icons, we can also pitch that card to draw 2 cards, which is nice. Speaking of wild icon, that's the other card. This is White Tiger, another card that we got. Oh, wrong White Tiger. It's actually this White Tiger. This thing is fantastic. We want to keep White Tiger around. We definitely won't pitch White Tiger to draw cards, but she's just one of the best thwarters you can imagine, and it's really important in this scheme. We have Field Agent, which is a shield support thing we don't really need. Clear the Area. This is a really nice card as well. Now, there's only one thing really to get threat off of this turn, but this gets rid of 2 threat for 1 card, and then you can draw a card if you remove the last threat on a thing, which is quite nice. It means in theory, Clint, basic 1 thwart and clear the area can clear the red house if we wanted to. And then we have another Field Agent, so not fantastic, but we can do a lot worse than this, that's for sure. We do have a science icon for White Tiger, which is okay. So we can get rid of 6 threat on turn 1, which is pretty reasonable. And obviously we have to play this out. So the question is, what do we do here? We definitely want to play Moon Knight at a minimum. That's free. We are going to go get our bow. There's no way around that. So I'm just going to pitch the Field Agent to go get our bow using Clint Barden's ability, which says spend a resource, search your deck and discard pile for your bow. We need our bow because our bow allows us to shoot arrows. Without that, we don't do anything. So we're going to go search for our bow. Luckily, our bow is entirely free, so playing it is super simple. So we're just going to play that on the table. You might have noticed I use these like white, blue, these are legacy Netrunner tokens back from FFG days from organized play, and I use these as exhausts. So when they have no color, or more color, technically, they're exhausted. So This also gives us +1 attack, which is not bad. That means we are technically a 3 attack hero, which means that in theory we can get rid of the red house in one shot if we use our attack stat. But also now we can shoot arrows. And I don't think we have any arrows we're going to be shooting this turn. All right, with that, I think we're done with alter ego. So we are going to flip up to Hawkeye's side, just so we're familiar with Hawkeye. Hawkeye has technically text. You can exhaust Hawkeye to ready your bow, which means, again, every time you shoot an arrow, it requires you to exhaust your bow. So instead of using Hawkeye's basic stats as a basic activation, you can just shoot 2 arrows. And some turns that's great, but having 3 attack with the bow down means that like your arrow has to be doing more than Hawkeye attacking for 3, which there's some board states where that happens, but not all the time. Okay, so if we play White Tiger, if we play Moon Knight, that leaves us with 3 cards. We can pitch these 2 cards to play Government Liaison, or we can pitch 1 Science Icon to get rid of 3 more threat, and then we can just play the Field Agent for 1 using the other card we have left over. I think we will. The Field Agent, for what it's worth, it doesn't really do anything off the bat. It is a cheap shield card, and we have a lot of cards that synergize off of having more installed shield cards, so just having a cheap shield card on turn 1 is like kind of okay. This plays around anything that makes you discard an attachment or an upgrade, so I think we are just going to do that. I don't want to draw with Moon Knight, so we'll play Moon Knight for 0. Moon Knight, pretty good, just reasonable stats, but costs nothing, so why the heck not? Now, notably, Moon Knight has 3 health. Now, generally when you play Marvel Champions, anytime that a character takes damage, you mark that by putting damage on the card. What I've been doing for years now is instead of doing that, I just put 3 on the character, and anytime the character would take damage, I decrement that, and we go down to 2 and to 1, and then obviously when it's 0, then the character is defeated. I find that a lot easier to track, especially on camera, because if I do something like this, how much health does Moon Knight have left? You have to look at the die, then you have to look at the number. Obviously, you can do some pretty quick math, but it's harder to tell from a distance. So whenever you see a die on something, that is exactly how much health it has left. So it's very easy from the top-down view to know exactly how healthy Moon Knight is. Moon Knight has 3 health left. I'll be doing that for everybody. This is the same way that the hero works with the hero dial, or sorry, the villain works with the villain dial. Same with the hero as well. So functionally, I'm not adding damage tokens, I'm removing damage tokens. Next, I'll play White Tiger. White Tiger comes into play, and we can choose to play, not the right White Tiger. We can choose to play a Science Icon. I think that's what that's called. So I'm going to get rid of Clear the Area and remove 3 threat from a scheme. So I'm just going to go ahead and clear the red house, which puts it into not the encounter card discard pile, but the side scheme deck discard pile. Now we have no side schemes. That's good. White Tiger, comes in with 3 health and is ready. And then here, I'm just going to pitch 1 to play the Field Agent. It's not going to do anything this turn. It's whatever. We just got to use our whole hand, which is nice. And we can exhaust the Field Agent to stop a shield ally from taking consequential damage. Now the question is, what do we do? I think we're just going to get some threat off of this for sure. So Moon Knight and White Tiger are both going to thwart, both taking 1 consequential each. So that is going to be 5 threat, which will work on Red Skull. And then we're going to attack for 3 damage, which is not bad at all. Again, 16 health isn't that much for Red Skull too, so we definitely want to just be chipping away if we can, and I think we have a minute there to do it. That's it. We're going to be drawing 2 encounter cards, but we dealt with our side scheme, so I feel pretty happy. Not the best setup, but we got 2 of our best allies turn 1, so why the heck not? And we'll drop 5. So we're going to get Sonic Arrow. That's an arrow that confuses. This is Cable Arrow. This is a really important card in this matchup because it's the only arrow we have that removes threat. And most of the side schemes come in with 3 threat, which is perfect for Cable Arrow. So it's very likely we'll shoot the Cable Arrow to deal with the side scheme. Maybe with White Tiger, we'll do something else. Explosive Arrow, we've currently drawn a lot of arrows, which is a bit of a bummer because if the back half of our deck has no arrows, Hawkeye is as cool as you think Hawkeye is. Sky Destroyer, expensive card, it's a shield card. But once we get this on the table, once per turn when we play a shield card, we get to ping something for 2 damage, which is nice. And another Clear the Area, which we might be able to use this turn to get some threat off of something, probably the main scheme, and draw a card. All right. So the Rise of Red Skull, we put 1 threat there, and here at the top of the villain phase, we go ahead and grab the top card of the side scheme deck, and it is Censor the Past. It comes in with 3 threat, and it says, a Hydra controls all media outlets and uses propaganda to turn the masses against the heroes of the past. It has an acceleration icon. It's not going to matter right now, but when defeated, each player chooses up to 3 cards in their discard pile and shuffles them into their deck, which is pretty nice. Not massively useful cards in our discard pile so far, but we can always use the arrow and then put the arrow back into the deck. Actually, maybe not. I don't know how the timing works, whether the arrow's in the discard pile until it finishes resolving or not. But that's a nice way to get our important cards back. Now, Red Skull. Red Skull's going to attack us. Again, Red Skull functionally has 2 attack, and for just about every turn, Red Skull will have 2 attack. It's 1 + 1 for every side scheme, and we get a side scheme every turn. So Red Skull's attacking for 2 and a boost card. Here, don't want to block with any of our allies because they're still pretty healthy, and we do have 13 health here. With 9, it's a bit sketchy, but we're just going to flip this over. It is a boost icon, From Evil Alliance, it says after this activation resolves, place 1 pursuit counter on Pursued by the Past. So it doesn't actually add +1 to the attack, which means we're only going to take 2 damage, and Pursued by the Past is at 1 of 4. So we'll take 2 down to 11. Pursued by the Past, we'll explain this when we get closer to it really mattering, but Pursued by the Past is part of the standard 3 encounter set. So you get this permanent card, and there's a whole bunch of cards in the counter deck that give you these counters. And once this thing hits 4 counters, your Nemesis comes into play. So it's not like Shadow of the Past, where just 1 chance out of as big as the encounter deck is, your Nemesis comes up. This kind of guarantees your Nemesis will show up. It's not likely to be on turn 1, so it usually happens in the mid game, which is a nice time to draw your Nemesis when you're a bit set up. But it means you just see your Nemesis more often, which I think is a really, really cool change to the standard encounter set. All right, we have 2 cards to draw. First, Sinister Strike. So this is the version of Assault from standard 3. And so it says, when revealed, place 1 pursuit counter on Pursued by the Past. And then if there are counters on it, which there are, mind you, if we hit 4, we would have removed all the counters and done the Pursued by the Past thing, the villain attacks us. So villain is attacking Red Skull for 2 and a card. Still not going to block this turn. And it's 2 boost icons on a laser rifle. And so we're going to take 4 damage, dropping from 11 to 7. So again, we'll definitely recover at some point. We'll probably do a confuse and then flip down if we can, but that's not too bad. We still have 7 health. Next up. Whoa, okay, let's keep going. So we're on our 3rd counter, and Red Skull's attacking us for the 3rd time this turn for 2 and a card, and we're still not going to block here. We have defense 1, mind you, on Hawkeye, which means the blocking almost never makes sense unless it's like you're going to die if you don't block here. But 2 and a card. This has a boost icon. This is Hydra Exosoldier. It says give the villain a toughness status and another boost card. Okay, so this boost card doesn't have any icons that matter. So we're at 2. Spreading Lies says give Red Skull a tough status card we can't, and 1 icon. So it's 1, 2, 3. So we're down to 4 health. That would have definitely like just straight up killed us if we didn't have our upgraded health with our upgraded recovery, but we could have blocked with allies if we wanted to. So honestly, pretty rough so far. We're 1 away from getting our Nemesis into play, as much as we've seen 2 Sinister Strikes, which is nice. So here it's a bit risky to flip down. We probably could consider flipping down. If we clear Censor the Past, we could go Alter Ego and recover. Rise of Red Skull is pretty low. Censor the Past we can get rid of with White Tiger, no problem. And then we could probably recover and then draw a card with our improved recovery, and that might be nice. Red Skull will threat, or will scheme a fair bit. 3 and a card is a lot, and we haven't seen any of the encounter cards that say activate and do another scheme, so we're risking it a bit here, but we definitely could value healing 4 here, as much as we do have 2 blockers on this turn. Okay, so we have cleared the area. We have a whole bunch of arrows. Oh, we do have a confused arrow. Oh, this is super easy. Okay, we have Sonic Arrow, so confusing the enemy and flipping down should be no problem. We'll confuse Red Skull for sure. So we need to play the Sonic Arrow, so I have no problem pitching the Sky Destroyer and the Explosive Arrow for 2. That leaves us with 2 cards here. So we could keep these 2 cards, and then when we flip down and recover, we can maybe play something with these 2 cards and another card. Not that these 2 cards specifically are playable on their own, but that's technically an option. The other option is we could keep the Sky Destroyer, which might be fun. And so we pitch 2 for the Sonic Arrow, which does 3 damage and confuse. We'll have, we won't have enough cards here. So the other option is we can pitch the Sky Destroyer to clear the area off of Red Skull and draw a card. That'll leave us on 2 cards. We haven't seen any resources. So if the top card of the deck is one of our double resources, we can play the Sky Destroyer, which would be pretty cool. But I think we're just gonna take a risk here. Oh, the problem with Censor the Past is if we clear it, we shuffle 3 cards from our deck or a discard pile into our deck if we want to. It's up to 3, so we can choose not to. The thing is, like, I don't want to shuffle any of these into our deck because I think we want to draw something off the top, like a double resource or an ally. I guess we could always shuffle in a 2-cost ally like Quake, which would be playable off the top of the deck. But we technically can like always throw it with Tiger after we flip down so that this doesn't interact with when we draw while recovering. All right, I think we're just gonna hope for the best here. So Sonic Arrow, and we're gonna shoot 2 arrows. So Cable Arrow and Explosive Arrow. Oh, the problem is we have a toughness here, so we're gonna lose 3 damage. So I think that's the case. I'm just gonna use Moon Knight to thwart or attack for 2 just to take the toughness off so we lose less damage. Now this arrow is gonna go through. Sonic Arrow does 3 damage and it confuses the enemy. So that's gonna drop Red Skull down to 10 and we get a confuse there. Now with Hawkeye, we are just gonna go ahead and flip down straight away. So we're gonna go back down to Clint Barton and we have a recovery stat of 4. And when we use it, we can draw a card. So we're gonna use our improved recovery upgrade to recover for 4. So we go up to 8. Exhausting Clint, but we do end up drawing a card. So we're at 8 and we draw Homeland Intervention. Not very useful. It says exhaust up to 3 shield cards you control and choose a scheme, and then you can remove threat from the scheme. This is why we often play a lot of like cheap shield cards, just so this card becomes quite nice because the field agent isn't doing anything. So we can still play it, but unfortunately this hand is a bit of a brick. Our chance of drawing into a double resource was like, I'd consider it to be ambitious. But yeah, it was definitely an option. It was an attempt. All right, we had to exhaust the bow to do the attack. So White Tiger is gonna thwart 3 off Censor the Past. And when Censor the Past is removed, we can shuffle up to 3 cards from our discard pile into our deck. So we have a couple options here. I think we want to put the Sonic Arrow back in, which is nice. The Cable Arrow, just to get more arrows back into the deck. And I think we'll do another Sonic Arrow, just so we have a bit of confusion, so we can hop in and out of our recovery mode if we want to draw more cards, and we'll just give this a shuffle. Unfortunately, this leaves us with mostly a dead hand. Like, we can't play any of these cards, really. Well, we can use Homeland Intervention, and we definitely will, at a minimum, just to exhaust our field agent. Notably, it's an action, but it's not a hero action, so alter egos can do it as well. So if that's the case, we'll play it. We'll exhaust our field agent, and we'll just clear this. And then I don't think I want to keep any of these cards. Sky Destroyer might not be terrible. It's pretty early on, and we're actually going to have like a hand size of 7 because we can just recover to draw a card. So the Sky Destroyer, we might actually just keep it because this is a card that you want to get down sooner than later. It just helps you deal with minions, let alone just every turn you get 2 free damage functionally on Red Skull, which is not bad at all. So I'll hold on to this and then discard the clear the area and then pass and draw back up. So we'll keep the Sky Destroyer, draw 5 more. We have the Confuse Arrow. We have Build Support, which is a side scheme. So we can use this too if we play it and clear it immediately because we don't want to leave side schemes on the table. We can go get our Sky Destroyer, let alone we can go get our Helicarry, which is nice. We have an energy, so it'll make playing the Sky Destroyer a bit cheaper. That's nice. That's 4. 5, we have a Stun Arrow, an Electric Arrow. And then 6th, we have an Expert Marksman. Expert Marksman, there's 2 of these in the deck, and it allows you to get resource a turn to play arrows, which is nice because we want to play an arrow a turn, so that lines up really well, and it's very cheap to play. So we have 6 cards in hand. We'll pass to the enemy phase. Rise of Red Skull gets 1 threat, and we reveal the top card. It's Hydra Patrol. So this is the only card that is not unique to this scenario that comes in the scheme deck. It comes in with 2 threat and has a crisis icon, so we can't take a threat off of the main scheme until we deal with this. And it says, when defeated, each player searches the encounter deck and discard pile for a Hydra minion and puts it into play with them. Now, notably, put into play is not when revealed. So you can use this to search the encounter deck for a minion that has when revealed text, like when revealed, do something bad to you, and you don't reveal it, so you get to go around that, which is quite nice. But this will guarantee that there's a minion engaged with us, which is fine. We can deal with a minion. And this is something we'll definitely clear. All right, back to us. Red Skull will activate for 2 and a card, but is confused. Sorry, it'd be 3 and a card, but is confused, is not gonna scheme. And then our encounter card is Hydra Soldier. I think there's like 3 of these in the deck, maybe a bit more. This has guard, so importantly, we can't attack the villain. It has 4 health, and when defeated, we deal the player an encounter card. So cut off 1 head, you get another, that's for sure. So now we're gonna have 4 damage to do this, and then we're gonna have another minion we're gonna grab from the deck. Notably, our hand, we only have a Stun Arrow and a Confuse Arrow, which is not terrible, but we don't have the AoE arrow, the one that does 3 damage to all things engaged with us. We have 1 in the bin, both in the bin, unfortunately. So not a great time to draw a lot of minions. Okay, the question is now, do we take a turn off and recover to draw a card? We're at 8 health of 13. If we heal, we'll be at 12, which is nearly max health. We have to deal with the Hydra Patrol, that's for sure. And then we'll have 2 minions. So this minion, don't have a great way of dealing with. If we don't recover, we'll be able to use Clint to attack for at least 3, which means Moon Knight plus Clint could finish it off. We don't have any shield cards in our hand, which is a bummer. So even if we go play the Sky Destroyer, we're not gonna be able to ping 2 damage. This should be ready. So what are we doing here? We probably don't want to block with Moon Knight, or we don't want to attack with Moon Knight or thwart with White Tiger because we can use them to block and attack this round, which is probably what we want to do. So I think we're not going to recover. I think we're just going to flip up and start attacking things because 3 attack is a fair bit, and 8 health, let alone 2 blockers, might go pretty far. So we'll just flip back up to Hawkeye. So we have 3 attack. We can technically shoot 2 arrows this turn. The Stun Arrow is probably our priority, but notably 2, the Stun Arrow is an attack, and Hydra Soldier has guard. So we have to defeat the Hydra Soldier before we want to shoot the arrow at Red Skull if that's what we want to do. So how are we going to take 2 threat off of the Hydra Patrol? Awkward. We might actually have to use both our allies. Moon Knight to deal with this, White Tiger to ping 1 damage, Hawkeye for 3 damage. Whatever the other minion is, we'll just like tank it. We'll pick something with low attacks, possibly. Another thing too is that some of the minions have Quick Strike, and if we don't flip up yet, if we're still in Alter Ego and we get rid of the Hydra Patrol and grab a minion with Quick Strike, it doesn't do a Quick Strike against an Alter Ego, only a hero. So that actually might be another thing we could consider at the order. What is the order here? Yeah, this is a bit ugly. So say that we wanted to like play expert marksman. We still like have 2 for an arrow, and this leaves us with 1, 2 for another arrow. So we can shoot 2 arrows, which means we have to exhaust Clint. One will be a confuse arrow, one will be a stun arrow. That's fine. The problem is like shooting an arrow when it just does 3 damage to a minion, like it's not fantastic. Like that doesn't really do that much. We might as well just attack. It uses our hand and that feels good, but like it doesn't do much more than that. So if that's the case, I think we definitely want to get rid of the Hydra Patrol. So I'm just going to start there and I'm going to do it in an alter ego. I'm going to use the White Tiger, or I'll just use Moon Knight to do, no, I should do White Tiger. It's probably strictly correct in case something comes up with a bit more health, and then we can use Moon Knight. So White Tiger will finish. We defeat it to consequential damage, but we'll deal with Hydra Patrol. And this means we can search the counter deck and discard pile for Hydra minion and put it into play. This goes into the side scheme deck and we have our choices here. Again, it is not revealed, it's put into play. So we have a couple options. We have a Hydra Exa Soldier that has huge stats and has toughness, so that's not fantastic. We have a Jet Trooper, which attacks for 2 with Quick Strike. It only has 3 health, but we're again in alter ego, so it won't do anything to us. I think the smallest minion is, in theory, the Hydra. Where's the one? There's a little guy here. Yeah, the Hydra Regular that attacks for 2 and has Insight 1, but because we're not revealing it, Insight 1 won't fire, so we don't end up putting a threat on the main scheme. That's probably the smallest one, but if that's the case, it is just as small as, oh, it has less health. Yeah, less health is fine. We'll just do the Hydra Regular. So Hydra Regular, just a little guy. I think the only one I have here is a Spider-Woman version, so the box is a bit of a different color. But Insight 1 won't trigger here because we did not reveal it. We put it into play. So Hydra Soldier still has guard. We are probably going to get attacked here unless we get the stun arrow off. So the Regular doesn't have guard. It's the Soldier that has guard. So we have to deal with the Soldier for sure so we can shoot the arrow at Red Skull. And I think we're just going to take 2 damage from the Regular here. I think we're just going to have to. Okay. So if we want to shoot 2 arrows, Clint and Moon Knight can take out the Soldier. We'll unfortunately get another encounter card. That's a thing. And then we can shoot an arrow at Red Skull. And then we can just set up a bit. I think that's probably what we got. Not fantastic, but it is doable. If we recover, we can only shoot 1 arrow, which, no, unless we draw, like we'd have to draw an ally. If we drew an ally right off the top of the deck, we could shoot we could recover to draw a card, but obviously we don't know what we're drawing into. So we'll flip up to Hero. Here, Hawkeye is going to attack for 3 into the Hydra Soldier, and Moon Knight's going to finish it off, defeating the Hydra Soldier. And the Hydra Soldier says, when defeated, you go grab an encounter card, and it's waiting for you here on the table for the next round. Again, 1 head, another head comes. Leaves us just with the Regular. We have no allies, so an attack is going to be coming through, that's for sure. So here we'll try and set up the Sky Destroyer. So I'll pitch Energy and a build support for the Sky Destroyer. Wait, did I mess this up? And then I can play 1, 2, 1, 2. So if we play the Sky Destroyer, we don't set up with the Expert Marksman. I think that's fine. The Sky Destroyer is just nice to get down sooner than later, and we don't really need the Expert Marksman. We have another one coming up, and we've already gone through, I think, more than half of our arrows on this cycle. Again, Expert Marksman just gives you 1 resource a turn, so not super important here for arrows. So we'll play the Sky Destroyer. Sky Destroyer comes into play. We can exhaust it when we play a shield card, which there's still a bunch of shield cards in our deck, and then we can just ping things for 2 damage. So that's ideally how we deal with the Hydra Regular on the next turn. And then we'll just exhaust the bow and spend 2 to play Electric Arrow, which this is our stun arrow. I believe, again, there's 5 different arrows in Hawkeye's kit. They each have a different effect, and they each cost 1 to 2, and there's 2 of each of them. So stun an enemy and deal 3 damage. So Red Skull goes down to 7 and is stunned, so won't activate against us. And I think that's it. That should be it. So we unfortunately don't use a couple of our cards, but what can you do? So we'll just pass and draw back up to 5. We have a Strength, a Surveillance team, so that technically does some thwarting. We have Agent Coulson, which is another ally. We have the Arrow that will remove 3 threat. And then we have Mockingbird. Mockingbird is one of our most important cards, and this is why we're super happy here to have Sky Destroyer. So this is Hawkeye's unique ally. It's relatively expensive, as much as we can make it cheaper with some other shield supports. But it says when the villain initiates an attack, we can spend a resource to bounce Mockingbird to our hand and just take no damage. For someone who starts with 9 health, that is very much appreciated. So that is a card that eventually we'll just end up looping, playing it every turn, and with Sky Destroyer, that's just free damage as well. So that's a pretty good hand, as much as we probably end up playing Coulson here, I'm guessing. We'll see how it goes. Rise of Red Skull. We put 1 threat, and we grab the next scheme, which is prison camps. This is just like a really rough theme. Obviously, most of the things here are pretty rough. This one hits pretty hard as well. Now this has really good text on it if you can clear it, and we can clear this relatively easy. So under Hydra's rule, families are separated and incarcerated without due process. When defeated, the player who defeated the scheme searches their deck and discard pile for an ally and puts into play and shuffles their deck. Now puts into play, if I'm not mistaken, fires when played abilities. Actually, I have to double check that. There's a chance that that's not true. I'll Google that at some point in the break here once we deal with this. But if we can deal with this, we get an ally, which is just good forward tempo. Now we might just play Mockingbird here, or we can also get one of the other shield allies we have in our deck, but clearing this just pushes us forward, which is nice. We definitely want to clear it. All right, back to Red Skull. Red Skull would attack us here for 2 and a card, but is stunned. And instead it's just the Hydra regular that will attack for 2. So we're just gonna take 2 damage. We're definitely not gonna block that. We get 2 encounter cards here. This can be a bit scary. We don't have massive health. We have no allies to block, but we did see 2 of the assault cards. So not too bad. Hydra Jet Trooper, okay. That's more damage, unfortunately. This is, gotta scroll through all the Hydras. This does have quick strike, so it's gonna be attacking us immediately for 2 damage. Here, an explosive arrow would be quite nice, but we've spent all of them. They're in the bin already. So we're just gonna take 2 damage. We're down to 4 health. Kind of scary, honestly. And then next up, we have Master Strategist. Master Strategist attached to Red Skull. It is an attachment. When Red Skull activates, give him an additional boost card for each side scheme in play, then discard this. So that means on his next attack, ideally, he's only going to have one additional boost card. Obviously, if you don't deal with the side schemes, this gets bad pretty quickly. But that means that you'll be attacking for 2 and a card, assuming he's attacking. Now, this is on the next activation, so if we cancel the activation with a stun or confuse, this will not be removed. But it is back to us. We have 2 minions, which have 5 damage. Now, we have Sky Destroyer, we have Agent Coulson. We can get rid of prison camps to get an ally. Give me 1 second, because I'm going to Google whether put into play fires the play abilities. I'm not 100% sure. All right, the cursory Google is saying that put into play will fire enters play triggers. So we actually can easily defeat prison camps and then get Nick Fury into play. And if you're not familiar with Nick Fury, this is one of the strongest basic allies in the history of this game. Only stays in for 1 turn, but when it enters play, which we'll fire here, we can just go ahead and draw 3 cards. So we're just suddenly massively ahead on tempo. And then we also have a blocker, which is really, really quite good. So I don't think there's any way that we're not going to just open up with dealing with the prison camps, get Nick Fury, draw 3 cards, and see what happens here. So if that's the case, we have an arrow in our hand. I have no interest in playing the surveillance team here, so we'll just do Cable Arrow for 1, exhausting Hawkeye's bow. And Cable Arrow is not an attack. It's just 3 threat off of a scheme, which is quite nice. And that was going to complete the prison camps. So that's 3 threat off the prison camps. Still haven't found our skilled investigator, and prison camp says when defeated, we can go search our deck and discard pile for an ally and put into play. I think it's just gonna be Nick for sure. So our deck, our quivers on the bottom 3, bummer. But we wanna find Nick Fury, who is coming up real soon. So this is Nick Fury, massively powerful card. And when Nick Fury is in play, is put into play, or enters play, excuse me, we get to decide one of these. Now removes 2 threat is fine, draws 3 cards. That's usually what happens with Nick because cards are so valuable in this game because not only are there options, they are resources. 4 damage can be relevant. We don't use it really, really well, but like 95% of the time, you just draw 3 cards when Nick comes into play. So Nick is in play. Now Nick will leave play at the end of this round, not phase, so we can still block with him if the enemy attacks, which is great, a nice way to soak the 2 boost cards. And with Nick in play, we'll just go ahead and draw 3 cards. So we get Homeland Intervention for some cheap thwarting. Finally, we found our Skilled Investigator, which we wanted, and Monica Chang. So Skilled Investigator is super cheap. We want to get that down as soon as possible, just so that we can get a free card draw functionally every round, which is quite nice. And now we have a pretty wide hand here. We played a shield card, or this is after you play a shield card. So Sky Destroyer isn't going to fire yet, but it shouldn't be hard here. I'm assuming we either play Mockingbird. So we can play Mockingbird for 3, do 2 damage to the Hydra regular. Hawkeye can deal with the Hydra Jet Trooper for 3. We can play Skilled Investigator, play Homeland Intervention to remove 2 threat from there. I think that's probably what we're going to do. So we're going to start by pitching Monica and Strength to generate 2 resources for Mockingbird. Again, this is our unique ally. This is only, or this version of Mockingbird is only in Hawkeye. And not only is it a shield card, but it means that we can functionally safely block on some weird turns by returning Mockingbird to hand. This is a shield card, so exhaust the Shield Destroyer to do 2 damage to a card. We'll get rid of the Hydra regular. We have a couple cards left. We're definitely going to play the Skilled Investigator. And then we have Agent Coulson, who is a Justice ally. Functionally costs 3 resources, but you do get a card back when you play Agent Coulson, so not as expensive. I think we're just going to play Homeland Intervention to exhaust up to 3 shield cards. We'll exhaust the Field Agent. That's enough. And we'll just get rid of Rise of Red Skull, the threat off of it. Will we hold Coulson? Yeah, maybe. Yeah, why not? And this leaves us here. So Hawkeye will exhaust to do 3 damage to the Hydra Jet Trooper, defeating it. Then, well, we have these folks here. We might as well use them. So they're both going to attack, which is going to do 4 damage, dropping from 7 to 3. So Red Skull is getting low. They both take 1 consequential damage, and we're just going to pass the turn. Question is, again, whether we keep Agent Coulson. I think we can. In terms of like our double resources, we've played Strength so far and Energy, so we still have Genius in the deck, which makes Coulson a bit cheaper. I think it would be more important for us to play the Helicarrier if we found it. I think the Helicarrier is still in our deck, but otherwise we're doing pretty well. We're going to be cycling through our deck in 2 turns, which means we want to get, well, we'll keep Mockingbird, but we want to get Coulson back into the deck, I reckon. Yeah, we'll keep Coulson. It stops us from drawing our quiver, which is rough. Yeah, we'll still keep. So we'll keep Coulson, and then we'll draw some more cards. So we have Global Logistics, Agent 13, so maybe a better shield ally. We have our Expert Marksman, so a way again to get a resource a turn for arrows. And then we have a stun arrow, which is quite nice. We could use that for sure. All right, Rise of Red Skull gets 1, and we reveal the next side scheme. This one is the Sleeper Awakened. So this is a really fun one. You only have to deal with this generally once, because once you defeat it, in a weird way, it removes itself from the game. So the side scheme cannot leave play while the Sleeper is in play, and when revealed, we put the Sleeper into play engaged with us. Now, when the Sleeper is defeated, we remove this card from the game, and the Sleeper is a massive creature. It scales based off of player count, so us, it only has 5 health. It does have Retaliate, Guard, and Toughness. Now, we technically have these things called Vibranium arrows that have piercing, so they just bust through Toughness, and we can one-shot the Sleeper for 6 damage. It does have Retaliate too, so if we attack it and we don't defeat it, if we don't have a ranged attack, and mind you, our arrows are ranged, but otherwise we will take Retaliate damage, which will be 1 damage. And when defeated, we remove the Sleeper from the game, so we only have to deal with this once, but this is an enemy. And the most notable thing about this is that because this enemy entered play during phase 1 of the villain step, it will actually engage or activate against us in a second here. So to show you how that works, now we go to Red Skull. Now Red Skull is going to activate for 2 and a card because there's 1 side scheme in play, and we're going to get an additional boost card, 1 for each side scheme. So it's going to be 2 boost cards. We're going to block here with Nick Fury, who's on the way out anyways. So let's reveal our 2 cards. First card is Red Skull's right hook. So that's +3 icons. So we're currently coming in for 5 damage, and then followed up by an advance. Good not to see an advance, has no boost icons. Why is this in the deck? Hold on, that shouldn't be in the deck. We should be playing, what's it called? Oh, the deck is a bit messed up. Hold on, so I'm surprised why that's in the deck. I think I accidentally shuffled in 1 card from Standard. We should be playing Standard 3, so that shouldn't be in there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, that card snuck in. So we'll reveal a different card instead. And so this has 3 more icons on it. This is Under Fire. So it's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 damage, which doesn't have overkill, but it will remove the Master Strategist and it will defeat Nick Fury. Now, all mains engage us as activate. So that unfortunately is a sleeper, and the sleeper is going to be activating against us, and the sleeper hits pretty hard. I think it's 3 damage, which puts us to 1 health, which is not a place we want to be. So there is a chance that we have to do our Mockingbird trick here, because I don't think we want to take 3 damage here. So I think we will use Mockingbird. So Mockingbird, oh, Mockingbird's only when the villain initiates an attack. Hold on. I didn't realize that. So we can't use Mockingbird to prevent this. So I think we are going to go down to a squeaky 1 health and hope for the best. We also could block here, which means we'll only go down to 2 health. Again, blocking is not my favorite thing to do with someone that has a 1 defense stat. But here in this case, I think that might be a safer thing to do. We don't have a confuse arrow, so flipping down is a bit dubious. We have a stun arrow, so we might just have to end our turn on 2 health. How do we deal with the sleeper though? That's a problem, right? If we block here, like Mockingbird can attack for 1, take the tough off, defeat herself to retaliate, unfortunately, and then we could like stun the sleeper. This seems kind of bad. This seems actually pretty rough here. Now, if we do play like Agent 13 or Agent Coulson, which would be a bit cheaper, we do also get a card back from Agent Coulson, and we get to do 2 damage from the Sky Destroyer, which would be nice. When we play this, we can go grab a preparation card from our deck or discard pile. So functionally, Agent Coulson, you pay 3, but you get 1 back, so not too bad at all. So if we ping the tough off, we have Coulson. If we shoot an arrow and then defeat with Mockingbird, that's okay. But if that's the case, we are allowed to block here. Question is, can we play this? So Agent Coulson is 3, and then we'll have 1 card back in hand, so we'll actually be 1 resource short of playing the Electric Arrow. Huh. Issue 2 is that the Sleeper Awakened, like, we don't get rid of it, because we don't defeat it. Skilled Investigator says when a side scheme is defeated, and this is, or the Sleeper says, when defeated, you remove the Sleeper from the game. So you actually don't defeat the Sleeper, or you don't defeat the side scheme specifically. You do defeat the Sleeper, which is a problem because we don't end up drawing a card here. We also could have we probably should have used Field Agent on the prior turn to not take consequential damage from Mockingbird. That actually would have mattered here. It would make this turn a lot easier. Because now if Mockingbird attacks the sleeper and doesn't defeat the sleeper, Mockingbird does take retaliate. So this is bad. This is definitely not easy. I just want to check how many of our piercing vibranium arrows we have left in the deck. Not that we can draw here, but it's good to know. 1. And what's like 9 cards is my guess? Yeah, exactly 9 cards. Okay. Not sure. Gonna think this through for a second. We still have an encounter card to draw as well, which is not great. So we play Coulson, we do 1, 2, 3. We get a card back, we can't play the arrow. We could play the expert marksman. Then without the arrow, we can do Mockingbird, 2 damage ping. Hawkeye for 3 will defeat us. Mockingbird for 2 will defeat us. Oh, we can still use Field Agent. We can still use Field Agent when Mockingbird attacks a sleeper so that she won't die to retaliate. That's probably the play. Then we have to use Mockingbird to block in the next turn. So we're going to get pretty low here. But that means that we need to attack with Hawkeye, which means we can't block here. So we're going to be on 1 health. This is incredibly ugly. And there's a lot of ways we can just blow up. If we draw anything that brings our Nemesis into play that has Quick Strike, or if we draw a Quick Strike minion, like all this gets really, really rough. But that means the sleeper is attacking for 3, and we're not going to be blocking it. We're just going to go ahead and take the 3 damage, and that leaves Hawkeye on just 1 health. We might flip down and recover and just ignore the sleeper. Only thwart for 1. Like, that's actually probably more reasonable. But we'll see how bad this encounter card is. Spreading Lies. Okay, not bad. When revealed, place 2 threat on each scheme in play. So Rise of Red Skull goes to 3, which is not great. But Sleeper Awakened can't get any threat because, well, you could. It just doesn't matter. So I guess we'll put 2 threat on it. Why not? But yeah, that threat actually doesn't have any relevance. Okay, so it's back to us. We're on 1 health. Notably, Sleeper has Retaliate. That's not great, which means anytime that we do damage to it that doesn't defeat it, that doesn't have ranged, we take 1 damage, which will just absolutely ruin Hawkeye. So our plays are we can play a shield ally. Say that we play Agent 13 for 4 cards. That's an option. When we play Agent 13, we do 2 damage with the Sky Destroyer, taking the toughness off the sleeper. Now, Agent 13 has really good text, not on this board. Like currently we don't have a good use for that. It means we can use the Field Agent more than once, actually. That's kind of cool. So I think there's a big chance that we'll just work on thwarting and then we'll flip down anyways and just have a couple of side schemes in play for 1 turn. And then we'll recover. And then next turn, we'll hopefully deal with the sleeper. Specifically because I think we have basically nearly a 50% chance of drawing a Vibranium Arrow, which just one-shots the sleeper. So I think this turn we're going to set up and we're going to ignore the sleeper and just say we'll try to get the threat off of the main scheme and hopefully not threat out. Okay. If that's the case, what can we do? We can thwart 2 with Agent 13, 2 with Mockingbird potentially, and that will clear the main scheme. That'll be all our hand. We'll actually end up drawing a card with Hawkeye though, when we recover. So I don't think we have to commit to anything yet because we're not going to be playing any of these cards in hero side. The other options, we can play Agent Coulson, get a card back. That will leave us on 2 cards in hand so we can like play the Expert Marksman at a minimum. That's not terrible, but again, I don't think we have to commit to anything until we flip down and recover and draw another card because none of these are hero effects. So we can play these on either side. Okay, so on that note, let's flip down. So we'll flip down for Hawkeye to Clint Barton. Here we have 4 recovery because of our improved recovery upgrade, which again, a very silly card, but we are using it. And we are going to use our basic action. We'll exhaust to recover. So we're going to recover 4. We go up to 5 and we can exhaust this card to draw a card. All right, it's a Confuse Arrow. So that's useless in Alter Ego form. I don't know if we're going to hold on to that. I don't think we are. I think the Stun Arrow is more important if we want to hold on to that, but we do have that as an option. The question is here, what do we end up playing? If we play Agent Coulson for 3 cards, we'll have 3 cards in hand. I do think we probably want to play the Expert Marksman before we go through our deck. The other option is we can play 4 cards for Agent 13 and just hold a card. That's also okay. Not huge. So it's either Coulson or Agent 13. Agent 13 is just like harder to put into play because she's more expensive and she has a better ability overall. We can also like just throw out the Expert Marksman, pay 4 for Agent 13 and use Global Logistics to like take 2 threat off the Red Skull. But we'll have our allies to do that. So I don't think we have to. Yeah, I'll play Agent 13. She's harder to play. So pay 4. We'll get rid of Coulson, Sonic Arrow, Electric Arrow, and we'll get rid of the Global Logistics. We'll keep on the Expert Marksman. So Agent 13, after she activates, you can ready one of your shield supports. So we have a couple. On the table, we already have Sky Destroyer. Here, mind you, Agent 13 is a shield support. So when she comes into play, we can ping the toughness off of the sleeper. Mind you, that's not an attack, so no one takes Retaliate. It's just 2 damage whenever you play, or once per turn, mind you. Now in theory, with Agent 13, you can ready the Sky Destroyer and do a bunch of different pings, which is kind of fun, but we don't have that set up just this turn. We have Expert Marksman in our hand. I think we might just hold on to it. We're going to be drawing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 cards, and then we can draw 1 more card by recovering, which we probably will. And if that's the case, we might just get the Vibranium Arrow. There's one left in these like 8 cards at this point. Let's deal with some threat. Again, if this schemes out, we don't lose the game, but we want to stay on 1A, 1B if we can, the Rise of Red Skull. So Agent 13 is going to thwart for 2. I'm going to use the Field Agent and exhaust it so that she doesn't end up taking consequential damage. That's exactly what that's there for. And then we'll just use Mockingbird. I don't mind if Mockingbird takes a damage because we want to use Mockingbird's ability to return Mockingbird to hand, so we'll clear that off. We have no reason to take threat off the Sleeper Awakened, and I think we're just going to pass it here. So things got a bit dicey, but I think just like running away to Alter Ego will be fine. So we're going to keep Expert Marksman, we'll draw up. So we got Government Liaison, we have a Genius, we're looking for a Vibranium Arrow, Field Agent, target acquired. Oh, that was a card that's maybe was worth playing Coulson to take this out of the deck because we don't want to draw it. Then our last card is the Vibranium Arrow, which is perfect. That is an arrow that has piercing. Oh, not that one, but it's an arrow that has piercing so that we can still not that one. Finally got it. That arrow does 6 damage in piercing, so it will functionally one-shot the Sleeper, and we won't take Retaliate for actually a couple reasons there. All right, passing back, Rise of Red Skull gets 1 threat per player, and we reveal the top card, so we're going to be multi-track drifting, and it's Hydra Reinforcements. So this one, when it comes into play, or when defeated, excuse me, the player who defeated this scheme discards a non-elite minion. So the Sleeper is very much elite. This does also have a, I believe it's called a hazard icon. I think it's called a hazard icon, but it means that we'll be drawing another encounter card this phase because this is in play, which is a bit of a bummer. So let's see what happens here. We still have to do some thwarting or some scheming, excuse me. So Red Skull has 3 scheme. So we're going to be scheming for 3 in a card. So 3. Twist Reality has 2 boost icons in it, so that's 5. So that takes Rise of Red Skull plus 6. We're at 6, right? 3, 4, 5, yeah. And then the Sleeper will scheme, which is for 1 in the card. So we are at 7 of 8. We're at the switching hour here. So 1 more scheme, obviously, we will advance, and we get 2 encounter cards here, which is a bit of a bummer. Now, if they are enemies, especially like the quick strike enemy, that's not too bad for us because we can defeat it by dealing with the scheme. But our first card here is Hydra Soldier. So that's not bad. Comes in with 4 health, and we've seen this one many times before. We'll see it many times again. And this has 4 health. It has Guard, which also Sleeper does. But when we defeat it, we get another encounter card. And finally, we have Infinite Power. Shit, this is really bad. This is not what we wanted. So we are going to advance. That's okay. When revealed in Alter Ego, give Red Skull a tough status card. Okay. And Red Skull schemes because we're an Alter Ego. So there's no way that we don't advance here. So it's going to be 3 and a card. Another Infinite Power. So that's 5. So 5 goes on Red Skull. It hits over its threshold of 8, and we are going to advance to the final scheme. If this one goes through, we do lose the scenario. New World Hydra. All right. Red Skull is 1 step closer to unlocking the full power of the Infinity Stone. You need to stomp him before he does, and reality is bent to his will. Reveal the top card of the Sky Scheme deck and put it into play. So this is where we end up falling behind, which is not great. This is Mass Chaos. This is going to draw us another encounter card if I'm not mistaken. So let's do Mass Chaos really quickly. I'm also pretty sure here, I don't 100% know the rules, but the side scheme deck is empty. Technically in Marvel Champions, anytime like the encounter deck or your player deck is empty, you immediately shuffle the discard pile. So it means that we're not waiting for these cards to enter back in. I think that's the rule. I'd have to double check, but I'm just going to do it anyways. So these cards are not going to be in rotation, which means we only have 4 cards in the side scheme deck here. So Mass Chaos. When revealed, each player discards the top 5 cards of their deck and places 1 threat here for each different type of resource icon. So we're only going to be discarding 3. We don't shuffle and keep discarding. So we get a science icon, losing our quiver, a might icon, a physical icon, and a science icon. So we're going to put 2 here. But very importantly, our deck is emptied. And when our deck is empty, we have to take an encounter card. And because we're in the encounter card phase, we will reveal it. We're going to have to draw another encounter card here. We will shuffle up our deck. Well, now we have a new deck. So everything that we've drawn, we'll be able to cycle through again. So now, of course, we'll be cycling through a deck again. Mockingbird not hitting the cycle is totally fine, but we have another Nick Fury coming up. We have a lot of work to do. Now, the backside of New World Hydra, we have to figure out what that is. So New World Hydra 2. Force Response, it has 11, so it's a bit harder. Comes in with 1 threat. This is after resolving step 1 of the villain phase, reveal the top card of the side scheme play, and when this is completed, we lose. So this is not different. Just starts with 1, but it has a higher threshold, but the same exact idea. Our last card is a Hydra Flame Soldier, so we have a lot of enemies. We do not have our bow, or our quiver, excuse me, and we also do not have our AoE arrow, which would be really good here. So we have some issues, that's for sure. Now, Hydra Flame Soldier doesn't attack for a lot, but if it does attack you, and I think if you don't block it, after it makes an undefended attack, you have to discard a support you control. That's okay, we can always lose the Field Agent. It's not the end of the world, but otherwise we have a lot of work to do on this table. Things have spiraled out of control. We definitely want to one-shot the sleeper, which can't be too hard with the Vibranium Arrow. That just one-shots it, clearing one scheme. We need to get rid of Hydra Reinforcements, so Agent 13 can scheme for 2. We'll end up drawing a card with Skilled Investigator. We have some cheap shield cards, so we can ping 2 damage into a couple of these enemies, and we actually can play 2 shield cards, I think. So if we play Government Liaison for 2, and then we use Government Liaison to play the Field Agent, we can ping Sky Destroyer twice, which says after you play a shield card, and Government Liaison says play a shield card. Yeah, that works. So that's probably the turn. That means that we might end up taking 1 attack from one of these allies or from one of these minions, because I do think we want to recover here. I think we want to recover. It's a bit greedy, but when we recover 4 and draw a card. Now the draw card is actually not super important, but we'll draw 1 card from Skilled Investigator, 1 card from Clint Barden, which is not bad, just to get us a bit deeper. So I think if that's the case, we'll start by just recovering. If we don't recover, we can attack 3 into the Hydra Flame Soldier, but also with Hydra Reinforcements, we're going to remove one of these enemies. We'll defeat one of the enemies with the Hydra Reinforcements. So if that's the case, we'll just get rid of the Flame Soldier or the Hydra Soldier, and so we'll be able to clear the board by Sky Destroying twice, clearing the reinforcements, and then one-shotting the sleeper. So we'll be able to deal with the table. I think we're going to be able to recover here, so we actually can heal. So I'll recover, I'll exhaust, heal 4, we're back up to 9. Recovery upgrade, we draw a card. It is a cable arrow. So we can't really use this arrow if we want to use our other arrow because we've exhausted. And the only way to use the bow twice is by using the text on Hawkeye, which requires you to exhaust Hawkeye. So that's not happening anytime soon. All right, we're still alter ego. Mind you, Skilled Investigator is a hero response. So if that's the case, we should pop up. So we're going to pop up into hero mode for sure. Okay, we will firstly play a shield card. Oh, well, we can just start by using, no, we should play a shield card first, I think. We'll just get out of the way. We'll use Genius to shoot a Vibranium Arrow. This arrow does 6 damage with piercing, so it just ignores tough. It also has ranged, because every arrow we shoot from our bow has range, which means we ignore retaliate. Regardless, we're going to defeat the enemy, but this does 6 damage. And Sleeper didn't have tough anymore, so retaliate, it is defeated, and now Sleeper will be removed from the game, let alone the Sleeper Awaken will be removed from the game. So we never have to deal with this again. All right, still 2 side schemes, but that is at least a nice start. Now we want to be able to use the Sky Destroyer twice this turn, which shouldn't be too hard. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to play a shield card, and the shield card we're going to play is Government Liaison, which makes other shield cards cheaper. So we'll pitch 2 to play Government Liaison. This is a shield card on its own. This is a nice card. We have 2 of these. Now they don't work exactly like you think they do. It's an action to play a shield card from your hand, reducing its resource cost by 1. I'll admit the first time I played this, I thought it just said your next card that you play that shield has its cost reduced. But because this is an action to play the card, it doesn't interact well with other copies of Government Liaison. Now it is a shield card, so we can tap Sky Destroyer to do 2 damage, so we'll just hit the Flame Soldier. Now Agent 13 will thwart for 2. And Agent 13 says after Agent 13 attacks or thwarts, choose a shield support and ready that support. So shield thwart for 2 off the Hydra Reinforcements. We have a lot of triggers here cascading. So Hydra Reinforcement says when it's defeated, defeat a non-elite minion. So we'll defeat the Hydra Soldier. Hydra Soldier says when defeated, get an encounter card. Okay, we're cleaning up the table. And then with Agent 13, we'll ready the Sky Destroyer. Okay, working on it, doing okay. We have 2 cards left in our hand. One of them we can play for free as a shield card. And we've also just defeated a scheme, so we can draw with Skilled Investigator, draws a card. It's an explosive arrow. We just drew that slightly too late. This card would have been fantastic, but I think we actually had better ways to deal with the table. This is the one that does 3 AoE to everybody on the table. All right, here we want to play another shield card, so it's super cheap for free. Use the Government Liaison to play another copy of Field Agent. It's not unique. Now this card technically has text. We could have used it on the field on Agent 13. Actually, we should. Yeah, let's just use it on Agent 13 so that she doesn't take consequential. And it's a shield card. So now we can exhaust Sky Destroyer to do 2 more damage to the Hydra Flame Soldier and defeat the Hydra Flame Soldier. We have cleared the board. Mockingbird will be our blocker. We need to take 2 threat off of Mass Chaos. Hold on, how do we take 2 threat off of Mass Chaos? It would have to be Mockingbird. Okay, luckily we can do that. That's why we play Field Agent. So Field Agent says, when a shield ally would take any amount of consequential damage, remove a counter to ignore it. So Mockingbird will do 2, defeating Mass Chaos, and will prevent the consequential that would defeat her by using Field Agent. We now can just go ahead and finally play our copy of Expert Marksman, which gives us 1 resource a turn to play for arrows, which is pretty useful. Again, we have a lot of arrows still left in the deck now that we've shuffled through. And I think that's our turn. Our board state, we have recovered. We have come back. This is not too bad. Red Skull, mind you, we can advance probably next turn. We still have 2 encounter cards, which is a bit frustrating. But luckily with 9 health, and we have this Mockingbird blocker that is a cheap shield card we can play over and over again. We are hitting our stride for sure. All right, we'll be drawing back up. We have another Expert Marksman. 2 of them is technically fine. There are 2 cost arrows, but it's not always necessary. Another liaison, surveillance team, which is a cheap card that removes 3 threat over 3 turns. We have a cable arrow and a sonic arrow. So we have a confuse arrow if we want, and we also might consider doing 2 arrows this turn if we want to. All right, New World Hydra gets 1 threat. It's on 2 of 11, and our next card is Prison Camps. This card, honestly, it feels like an upside. We've seen this before, but when we defeat this, not only do we draw a card with Skilled Investigator, but we end up also drawing 3 cards by playing Nick Fury for free. So this thing is like, honestly, it's a weird sentence, but when we see Prison Camps, we're happy. That is a very regrettable sentence. Red Skull's gonna attack for 2 and a card, and we're gonna use Mockingbird's text here. So when the villain initiates an attack, so we have to do that now before we see what the boost card is. Spend a resource of any type to add this card back to our hand. So there's no shot we're playing Surveillance Team here, I don't think. Yeah, no shot. We return Mockingbird to the hand. And now we're not blocking, but we prevent all damage from this attack. So Red Skull's attacking for 2 and 1 boost on the Hydra Soldier. So 3 damage, we take none of that damage. Now we could have taken the damage, we're on 9 health. It's not honestly that frightening, but we do just want to replay Mockingbird because it is a shield card and we can do the 2 Sky Destroyers per turn kind of loop here with Agent 13. All right, first card we get Red Skull's Luger. We're just at a point that we're going to be getting our Nemesis sooner than later. So attached to Red Skull gets piercing and range. So piercing eats tough statuses and range means you don't take retaliate damage. We don't have any retaliate. And we can spend a hero action and spend 1 of each kind of resource to discard this card. I don't think we will anytime soon. I think we're closer to just like trying to rush down Red Skull here. Of course, we're going to keep the schemes inside in check, but this is not too big of a deal. Nowhere safe. Okay, I think we now just hit our Nemesis. So nowhere safe. Place 1 pursuit counter on Pursued by the Past, and now we hit our 4th counter, which means we have to do the text on it. So we're not going to do any more text on Nowhere Safe because it will lose all its counters. So the front of Pursued by the Past says, after you place a Pursued counter here, if the number of counters is at least 3 more than the number of players, which it is, remove each counter. If your Nemesis minions and play it active events against you, otherwise flip this over. And on the back of the card, it just says, put your Nemesis into play, put its scheme card into play, and shuffle the rest of it into the deck. So we're going to get Crossfire. Crossfire has Quick Strike. Crossfire is going to now be immediately attacking Crossfire Nemesis for 2 damage. We're not going to block it, which take 7. Oh, a bad thing happens. It has piercing, which is a bit annoying, but whatever. Let's get rid of this Nowhere Safe. And then we get to put the side scheme into play. The side scheme is marked for death. Annoyingly, this is a side scheme. So it does count for everything that Red Skull is doing. And it also means that this card, when and if we defeat it, will end up in the side scheme deck. So we're actually going to be drawing this a fair bit, which is an easy thing to miss. Now, when revealed, this is going to be frustrating. The Clint Barton player searches their hand, deck, and discard pile for Mockingbird and is captured here. As soon as we defeat this, Mockingbird's returned to our hand. But I'm glad that we didn't lose Mockingbird on the table. At least we blocked with her. But if we want to get Mockingbird back, we need to take 5 threat off of it, what is a fair bit. The next 3 cards, mind you, and a bunch of them just say take 3 damage. We end up shuffling into the counter deck, and we remove all the counters from Pursued by the Past. So now we have a bit of work to do this turn. We have Marked for Death to deal with. We have the Prison Camp to deal with, but I think we should be able to deal with everything. We still have shield cards in our hand, so we can double tap Crossfire if we want to, which I think we probably will. And these field agents can mean Agent 13 doesn't have to take consequential. I think Agent 13 taking 1 consequential damage is totally fine. Cut and shuffle, and we'll put that away. Okay, it's back to us. We have a free cable arrow if we want to, so we can just clear prison camps. I think that's probably what we're going to do. We can always keep the sonic arrow for later, but clearing prison camps for a single card is pretty nice, and then we end up drawing a fair bit. So I think we're going to exhaust our bow and exhaust Expert Marksman to play Cable Arrow, which just takes 3 threat off of the scheme. Cool, we'll clear the Prison Camps. Prison Camp says when defeated, search your deck for an ally and put it into play. So we're gonna search our deck for an ally, and no surprise, it is Nick Fury. I so far have not called Nick Fury Nick Cage once. That's always a nice little treat because it's only a matter of time. We also now, when Nick Fury comes into play, we have a bunch of like cascading triggers here. So when Nick Fury comes into play, we can choose what to do. We could one-shot Crossfire with 4 damage. I think we're just going to draw 3 cards. And we also have Skilled Investigator, which says once per turn when the side scheme is defeated, we can draw a card. So we're going to draw 4 cards here, which is incredibly nice. Now, drawing cards has like, if you keep drawing arrows, is not that good. So there's a chance 4 damage with Nick Fury is fine here. But we're definitely going to be drawing. Let's just draw 4 cards. Second arrow, bummer. Homeland Intervention, so we can exhaust some shield cards. Helicarry, that's really good. That's a really nice one with Agent 13. This gives us a resource a turn to play a card, which is great. It is also a shield card, so you can reawaken it with Agent 13. And then we'll draw a Skilled Investigator card, which is Quake, an ally. Okay, we have a huge hand here. We want to deal with Crossfire. Nick Fury comes into play, but Sky Destroyer says after you play. I don't think those triggers work, but it shouldn't be an issue. So we could play a shield card here, no problem. So for instance, we can play Homeland Intervention, and Homeland Intervention lets us exhaust a couple shield cards. So we're going to exhaust 2 field agents. I think we're going to keep the government liaison. Yes. So that's 4 threat, and we're going to remove 4 threat here for Marked from Death. We've also now played a shield card, so Sky Destroyer says that we can ping something for 2 damage after you play a shield card, so we'll exhaust it to do 2 damage to Crossfire. Okay. Crossfire we can deal with. Agent 13 is now going to thwart for 2. Yeah, it's overkill, but what can we do? And take 1 consequential. That will finish Marked for Death, which now goes into that discard pile, and we get back to our hand Mockingbird, which I think we're going to play. After Agent 13 activates, we can ready a card. So we're going to ready Sky Destroyer again, and now we're going to play another shield card. So here, Mockingbird's going to cost us 2 cards. We can play Expert Marksman. I think we don't actually need to play the Helicarrier. The arrows, unfortunately, are not totally useless. Not totally useless. The problem is like Red Skull has the toughness, so we can do the electric arrow if we wanted to, and Nick Fury could like take the toughness off. We also could consider like clearing the Luger, which there's something to that for sure. I don't think it's a massive problem for us. But now we just want to play a shield card. So we want to play Mockingbird. Government Liaison reduces the cost by 1. And then the question is, what else do we want to keep? Like, I don't think we play Helicarrier Quake. At least those with 4 cards in hand. So we can play this and then use that to play another arrow. That's fine. So Mockingbird will come into play. She's a shield card, so we can do 2 more damage by exhausting all Helicarrier. And so we'll finish off Crossfire. Okay, so yeah, I think we are just going to shoot an arrow at the face. So here we're going to throw out the Sonic Arrow to put another copy of Expert Marksman. I'm just going to stack them. They're 2 separate cards, but they have 2 shots. This again is just a resource for an arrow every turn. Now we're going to use Nick Fury to attack for 2, taking the tough off. Mockingbird is going to thwart for 2, reducing New World Hydra to 0. And then we're going to exhaust this arrow. Doing this last click is actually like last action is a bit dodgy. And then we'll pitch the Government Liaison to do Electric Arrow. Electric Arrow does 3 damage and stuns, which is perfect. Now this will advance the villain to her final stage. So 3 and stun. Now the stun will carry over to Red Skull 3. Well, let's see what Red Skull 3 has in store for us. Red Skull 3. Numbers usually just go up here. So Red Skull 3 gets +1 attack for each side scheme in play, no surprise. So now it's going to be 3 attack at a minimum. When revealed, deal each player an encounter card. Fantastic. And has 20 health. So a sizable jump there. No new mechanics, but just a whole bunch of health. Will remain stunned, so we're not going to get an activation. So we're just going to have to deal with 2 encounter cards here. Pursued by the Past now being reset is nice, but we have a whole bunch of encounter cards in the deck that just say deal 3 damage. Those are honestly not terrible. I imagine other encounter cards are worse than that, so that's okay. And with that, I think we just passed the turn. It's a bummer that Nick Fury, we actually might have not wanted to go for the stun arrow. I think in hindsight here, we actually are going to go for the Sonic Arrow instead of the stun arrow. And that's because we have Nick Fury as a blocker. And so when Red Skull attacks for what's going to be like 4 in a card, we'll just block with Nick anyways. So that's probably a better thing to do. Obviously we saw Red Skull 3. So like you can say that we saw the future and gained some information, but I've played Red Skull before. It'll be fine. All right, that's us. Oh, we still have Hawkeye? Wait, we haven't used Hawkeye? We haven't used Hawkeye. Is that right? Yeah, I guess not. Okay, we'll attack for 3. Cool. Now we'll pass. So we'll ready up everything. 13's working. We have Mockingbird for a panic block. We have Nick Fury for immediate block. And then we have all our cards working for us. So our board state is developed. That's for sure. We'll be drawing a Clear the Area. That's going to be nice. Finally, our Quiver. This is like the most important Hawkeye card. We've gone pretty far without it so far. I wouldn't say it's more important than your bow, but this just means that you can grab arrows out of your deck so that your card draws better, and then you can keep arrows on this that are better for certain board states. So like grab the AoE arrow and then play it until you need it. This card is just so good. It gives you like functional extra hand size, not for resources, but very valuable. We have a energy, a Homeland Intervention, and our final card is a Vibranium Arrow. So we have a big 6 damage if we draw that. There's 1 minion that has toughness that's worth dealing with. All right, New World Hydra gets 1 of 11. We draw the top card of the scheme deck. It's Hydra Patrol. So when we defeat this, we go grab search through the deck for an enemy, Hydra enemy, and put it into play. So not when revealed, put into play. That's useful because we can now go grab the thing that has toughness on it. Then we can just one-shot it with a Vibranium Arrow, which is useful. And Red Skull's now going to attack for 1, 2, 3, 4, and a card because there's a side scheme. And we'll just block with Nick, who's on his way out anyways. Exhaustion, 6 damage, defeats Nick. There's no overkill or anything, so that's fine. And then we'll just draw 2 encounter cards. So we have this one waiting for us and this one waiting for us now. Our encounter card, Dark Designs. This is the equivalent to Advance and Standard 3. It says place 1 pursuit counter. Then if it has any pursuit counters on it, the villain schemes. Unfortunately, the villain is scheming here for 4 and a card because Red Skull has 3+1 because of Luger. So this is a pretty big scheme. There's going to be 4. Boost, give the villain a tough status card. And another boost card. So we're at 4. Boost, if you're in hero form, the villain attacks you after this activation. Do not deal any boost cards for that attack. Okay. A lot is going on here, mind you. That was the Hydra Jet Trooper. So that just has a really interesting boost here. So we don't add any icons here, but so Red Skull is scheming for 4. So this is going to go up to 5 of 11. And now after this activation, the villain attacks you. Do not deal them any boost cards. So Red Skull now is just attacking us for 4 and no boost. So it's just 4 damage. If we want, we can use Mockingbird to deny 4 damage. We can also just take 4 damage. I'm not super incentivized to just take 4 damage because we have a whole bunch of cards in the deck that just shoot you for 3 damage. And if we're on 4 damage and this is a 3 damage card, we lose the game. So we have to be a bit careful because Crossfire is on the streets. If that's the case, I think we're just going to do the Mockingbird thing. With Mockingbird, Homeland Intervention is pretty nice. Vibranium Arrow, Quiver, Clear the Area actually deals the Hydra Patrol really well. So we have to get rid of 1 card here to return Mockingbird to our hand. It might just be Homeland Intervention. It seems really good because it's like a really cheap 4/4. So honestly, it might be the Quiver. It's probably the energy. I think that's absurd, but I think it's probably the energy here. But what are we playing? Like, this arrow is free. Homeland Intervention is free. Clear the Area will probably play the Quiver, so I don't think it matters. We'll just play energy. Oh no, because we have to replay Mockingbird, so we'll get rid of the Quiver. I think we're so far on in the game, the Quiver is probably not worth worrying about right now, but we're going to return Mockingbird to our hand. Return it to hand, prevent all damage from this attack, so we have Mockingbird in our hand. So we traded a resource for a resource, and we take no damage here. We still have 1 final encounter card. Criminal Past. All right, this is our obligation. This is the unique card for Hawkeye. And it says, you may flip to Alter Ego, then choose. Either exhaust Clint Barton, you can only do that if you're in Alter Ego, to remove this card from the game, or we can discard Hawkeye's bow, which means we can't shoot any arrows. That's never really going to be the choice here. So we're going to get a free flip down, which there's something to that. This doesn't eat your once per turn flip. And then we're just going to go ahead and, I think, exhaust Clint Barton. We also could just throw the bow out and then spend a resource to get it back. That's fine. We don't need Clint Barton's activation this turn. If anything here, we would have like maybe considered healing, but I don't think we need to do that. So we start here in Alter Ego. That doesn't mean we can't flip back up. So if we deal with Hydra Patrol, we're going to get a new enemy. If we do it with Clear the Area, we're going to draw 2 cards. Now the Vibranium Arrow might be useful. I don't know how many of the tough enemies there are left in the deck. We've seen 1 Exosoldier. I think we've seen 2 so far. We draw 1 on a boost early. Yeah, we drew 1 early. So there might be a 3rd one. I don't know what the quantity is in the counter deck, but that is the one that we can basically one-shot any enemy with the Vibranium Arrow for sure. So that's okay. We could replay Mockingbird for the energy and the Government Liaison doing 2 damage. So if that's the case, I don't think we clear the area. I think we're just going to use Agent 13 here. But before we use Agent 13, we want to use the Sky Destroyer to ping off the tough status. So that's what we'll do. This is a hero action Government Liaison, so I think we're going to flip up to hero mode. We're going to exhaust Government Liaison, which reduces the next shield card we play. And you are going to see this card played a lot, I reckon. We're going to spend 2 more for Mockingbird. Is a shield card. We'll exhaust Sky Destroyer to take the toughness off, and we will have Mockingbird in play. Next, Agent 13 is going to thwart for 2. We are not going to use the field agent. I think 2 damage is enough. And Agent 13 says after she activates, you can ready shield support. So we'll ready Sky Destroyer again. I don't think we need Government Liaison another time. No, we're fine. That will clear Hydra Patrol. Hydra Patrol says when defeated, we have to search the deck for a Hydra minion and put it into play. So this is deck or discard? And discard. Okay, so it's entirely our choice. The question is, if you take a card out of the deck, you make the deck more consistent at hitting things like say, Sniper Shot. So we actually might just want to go for the discard pile and keep this deck to be like this. I don't think Sniper Shot's that bad for us, but it's the sort of thing that if we end up in a bad situation, it can just kill us. Like there's not a lot of ways to interact with just taking 3 damage. So if that's the case, I'm just going to shuffle the counter deck and just grab from the discard pile and just keep the deck as thick as possible so that we're least likely to run into the things that we're worried about. Like the second copy of Dark Designs, I think is still in there. I don't think it's a huge deal what we take. I don't think it's huge. I think we can just take a Flame Soldier. It's the same. Everything dies the same. It's fine. We have a Flame Soldier here. Has 4 health. If it attacks us and we don't block it, we have to discard a support, which we have a lot of supports, but it is a Flame Soldier. Now Hydra Patrol is defeated, so we have no side schemes. We can draw a card with Skilled Investigator. It's an Agent Coulson. So we need to deal with the Flame Soldier, so we're just going to shoot it. We'll use 2 Marksmen to generate 2 resources. We'll exhaust our bow and send in a Vibranium Arrow for 6 damage. That defeats it. Nice try. Here we have a lot of thwarting to do. So we have 2 shield cards on the table, 3 shield cards on the table. So if we do Homeland Intervention, we can thwart a lot. If we use Agent 13 to instead of ready the government liaison, that might have been better, but we're going to do 2 damage with this anyway, so it's fine. So if that's the case, are we going to play any of these cards? This is a resource for 2. This draws a card if we play Clear the Area. It's not incredibly important. I think keeping Coulson in our hand is fine for next turn because it is just like a nice cheap shield card, and we like cheap shield cards at this point in the game because it just does Sky Destroyer stuff. So if that's the case, we're going to play Homeland Intervention, which we can exhaust up to 3 shield cards to remove 2 threat from a scheme for each card. So we'll exhaust 2, 4. So this will drop to 1. And then because we played a shield card, we can use Sky Destroyer to ping 2 more damage to Red Skull. Red Skull will be attacking us. I'm not too concerned about it. And then we'll play... Do we clear 1? I don't think so. I think we just keep Coulson. We'll use Mockingbird to do 2 damage to Red Skull's face. We're in striking distance. 1 good arrow, 2 good arrows. We'll be able to close the game off next turn. All right, well, ready and pass. We'll keep Coulson in our hand. It's nice to have at least a minimum 1 shield card as much as we could bounce Mockingbird. So we get an electric arrow. It's a stun arrow. Moon Knight, nice. There's still also, we have a white tiger in the deck. And then we have an explosive arrow. So we have 2 arrows. It does a fair bit of damage. And then, of course, we can attack for 3 as well. We have Mockingbird, we have Agent 13, we have 2 Sky Destroyer triggers, I think. Maybe not, but we should be able to do some damage. One thing that we messed up, I think, that I've been learning that's kind of nice to do, is that if you choose not to play your second copy of Expert Marksman, it is the only other card in our deck with a wild icon. Now, it's a bit silly to have Moon Knight line up with an Expert Marksman, but now we have no way of triggering Moon Knight's ability in our deck. New World Hydra gets its second counter. We revealed the Red House, so back to where we began. Now this card just says we cannot hurt at all. We just cannot damage Red Skull. And we can use our attack to thwart this. It has like the assault keyword before it was named, but that means Red Skull is entirely safe, cannot take any damage. So we have to deal with that first, which it's fine. We would have done it anyways. Our hand is okay at doing that, so we'll deal with it. Red Skull's attacking for 3 and a card. The most damage we can take here is 6, which is pretty bad. So I think we're just gonna do the Mockingbird thing. Yeah, so we'll just throw out Coulson. Yeah, maybe we shouldn't keep Coulson. We'll return Mockingbird to the hand. And so any damage from this attack is just canceled. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 off a Hydra regular. We save 6 damage, which is nice. And we get 1 encounter card. It's going to be Bitter Rival. When revealed, exhaust a character you control for each side scheme in play. So we have to exhaust 1 character. We could definitely exhaust Agent 13. Hawkeye one-shots a Red House. Agent 13 lets us fire Sky Destroyer an extra time. I don't think we really need to do that. I'll just exhaust Agent 13. Okay, can we do 13 damage with our hand? So Hawkeye does 3 at a minimum, and then our arrow does 3. 6. If we play a shield card, that's 7, 8. We attack with Moon Knight, that's 9, 10. So I don't think we have it. We definitely draw a card here. Oh, but we have to use Hawkeye into the Red House, so we're not gonna be able to do damage right away. So if that's the case, I'm gonna use Hawkeye to thwart the Red House, which does 3, takes 3 threat off of it, which will defeat it. So we clear that, which is good. So now we can damage Red Skull, let alone we can draw with Skilled Investigator, which is important. We draw on build support. It's way too late in the game for this to do anything, so it won't. And I think we're just going to start sending some damage. We can definitely go ahead and clear the area just to clear New World Hydra, draw another card. This means our arrow is free, Moon Knight is free, and then, hold on, actually, we should think this out. So if we play this, we'll have an extra card in our hand. Moon Knight is free, arrow is free, and then we can play Government Liaison, unknown card, explosive arrow for Mockingbird. Yeah, that seems fine. So clear the area, takes 2 threat. This is a card that's really good at 1, even sometimes 2 players, but it's solo, because a lot of schemes come in with 3 threat, 1 threat per turn. So we'll clear 2 from this, and because we've cleared all the threat, we get to draw a card. So okay, strength. All right, we're going to go ahead and play Moon Knight, who is entirely free. Not a standard card from deck building, but a card that we rescued in one of the earlier scenarios with Taskmaster. So just very, very good stats, let alone for free. We're not going to be able to fire that ability at all. We don't have any wild resources. If that's the case, we're just going to send some damage here. So we're going to exhaust 2 Expert Marksmans and our arrow to shoot an electric arrow. That's 3 damage and a stun. So that'll drop Red Skull down. Won't activate against us this round. On 10 health, Moon Knight will go in for 2, dropping down to 13. And then here we'll just exhaust Government Liaison. We'll keep the explosive arrow, I guess. It's some damage. And we'll pay 1, 2 for Mockingbird coming in. Now that is our shield card we play for the turn, so Sky Destroyer does 2 damage. So we're on 6, and Mockingbird will attack, dropping Red Skull down to 4. Things seem pretty good. I don't know, unless we just have to survive this encounter phase. We'll keep the explosive arrow just so that it's harder for us to deck out. Not that we will, but in case something causes us to trash cards off the top of our deck, it's not gonna be a huge thing. That really doesn't matter. And then we'll just ready up. I think we should have Red Skull in our sight. So explosive arrow, we have global logistics, we have field agent, white tiger is there, and a clear the area. So not a lot of damage in the hand, but 4 damage, I believe, is not gonna be that hard. 1 threat per player. Top of the deck is Censor the Past. So this gives an acceleration icon, and once Censor the Past is defeated, we can take 3 cards back from our discard pile and shuffle them into the deck. This is immensely powerful right when your deck is really thin, because you can just put in like Nick Fury and 2 resource cards and call it a day. But at this point, this should be our last turn here. Red Skull would attack for 4 and a card, but is stunned, so won't. And instead, our encounter card is Dark Designs. Dark Designs says that Red Skull would scheme. Says when revealed, place 1 pursuit counter on Pursued by the Past, and Red Skull schemes, but Confuse is going to also do its work here. Passes back to us. We're just going to go ahead and attack with Moon Knight, keep it really simple for 2 damage. And then just attack with Hawkeye. We definitely could have cleared the side scheme, but we have no real big reason to do that. Red Skull stands defeated. And that is Expert Red Skull. We're playing again Hawkeye S.H.I.E.L.D. This is the finale. Again, we played the entire campaign on Standard and just threw it on Expert here. Again, I think Expert is a lot of fun. And I just think this is such a great scenario. Of course, like playing Justice helps a heck of a lot. Skilled Investigator is just absurdly powerful when you know it's going to fire basically every turn. But giving you like a side thing to do is just I think makes things quite interesting. That's it. Thanks so much for watching. This is the first like video of Marvel Champion stuff on this channel. I reckon we're gonna do a fair bit either here or on another channel, but the setup is really fun and easy to use. If you have any feedback, please let me know. This is the first time doing something exactly like this, so we're trying to figure out as we go, but any sort of feedback will be absolutely appreciated. We'll be doing more content in the near future too, because the new expansion, the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D, should be out relatively soon, maybe even today by the time this video comes out. If that's the case, I might be on this channel already streaming it. But thanks so much for watching. Hopefully you've been enjoying some Marvel Champions. Take care.